The Sydney Swans, they're on an unbelievable run of form at the moment. It's their best start to the season since 1945, and they conceded the first 4 goals against Carlton, Jimmy, then kicked 13 of the next 14. Take us into why they're playing such good footy.
They're absolutely humming at the moment, the Swans. Nearly every statistical area, they're in the top half dozen. So they're defending, they're attacking, they're doing everything well, and Brodie Grundy is a big part of that. They've got class around the midfield. They've got a little bit of everything in the midfield. When you think about Goulden with that kicking ability, they've got speed with Warner. Heaney is probably leading the Brownlow medal. You've got the grunt with Rowbottom. Papley can come on ball. McInerney, Florent, who can go to half-back. And then you throw in Roberts and Campbell, who are also the subs, great ball users. There's some serious depth and quality. But one player that I didn't mention there is James Jordan, one of the other players they went and recruited from Melbourne, who was constantly the sub. And he's found a role with being the run-with player. And he doesn't completely do the negating role, but he takes the opposition's best around stoppage, dangerous areas. He still tries to get the footy himself. And these are some of his recent scalps. He also had Noah Anderson for quite some time against the Suns, but Lockie Whitfield, so that's a difficult one because he plays at half-back. Then Jordan Clark, who's another half-back flanker, and Walsh. So it just highlights his running ability, his discipline, and now he's got a role in that Swans side. It's very difficult for him to push out because there's a gentleman playing some good footy in the twos in Luke Parker. Yeah,
we're going to get to Luke Parker in a moment, but I want to talk about Michael Voss and Carlton just briefly first, because Michael Voss spoke after round 1 and he discussed, well, I guess the club's game plan into getting some miles into their players' legs, and it hasn't really worked out given the injuries they've got.
What we've decided to do is, probably go to the line hard over the last 4 weeks. So it probably means we haven't been as pristine because we've sort of trained pretty hard up to that point in time, and we've had, deliberately over this last month, kept training up and obviously got the game exposure we needed. The view was always to get to here and see what sort of shape we're in, and then use it as a bit of a rest and recovery, and then launch into the season from here.
Lee, you know the position that Michael Voss is in better than most, better than anyone really. Did they get it wrong with the way that they managed their squad?
You mean in terms of injuries?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's nothing to do with Michael Voss. It's to do with the conditioning staff. But, I mean, it is an issue. I mean, I always say if you get one soft tissue injury, that might be just something that happens. But if you get 2, 3, 4, 5, then you think there's something going on in our system. But I'm sure internally they're looking at everything to try and find out, is there anything we're doing as in a whole operation in the conditioning process to exaggerate the problem. But it is a problem. They're having trouble getting their best side on the field, and they've had that all year.
And they're in the premiership window, Jimmy, so they don't want these injuries affecting their chances of winning this flag this year, right now, when they need it. Luke Parker,
yes.
So you mentioned him before in the VFL. This incident occurred on Friday night against Frankston. Josh Smith was left with multiple broken bones in his cheekbone. You'll see that Luke Parker just bumped him late, and it was actually a head clash in the end. Nevertheless, it was deemed careless. I know that Luke Parker is incredibly remorseful. This will go to the VFL tribunal, and I've got no doubt it'll get at least 3 or 4 weeks. And I think that's probably what it deserves in the modern game, given the injuries that have been inflicted on him.
Yep, concussion, player in hospital, chose to bump. That's what you get, suspended.
Interesting situation, Luke Parker. I mean, to me, that was an act of aggression through frustration. Now, he's playing his 3rd or 4th game in the VFL after being out injured for most of the season. If I'm Luke Parker, I'm looking at the Swans team and saying, is Taylor Adams really better than me? If you haven't got some frustration from that situation, you're not human.
But Lee, I've got to ask you this question. That was a careless act. That wasn't a deliberate, intentional line him up and take him down. That was a head clash in the end. Surely Luke Parker's frustrations, he's a mature player, he didn't mean to do that.
They didn't even. It was a shepherd, but it was a shepherd where the player was sort of 5 metres from his to Luke Parker's. All I'm saying is he decided to make some contact. Certainly, he wasn't trying to hit him high. I understand that. I'm not saying trying to hit him hard, but I do think when you get a bit of he'd have to be a little frustrated when he's stuck in the VFL team and they've brought Taylor Adams in from another club and they're playing him in front of me. He's been like multiple best and fairest player, all Australian. So there's plenty of frustration in him, I'm sure.
All right, well, the VFL tribunal works slightly different to the AFL, so we'll know what Luke Parker gets tomorrow. I think it'll be at least a month on the sidelines.